I'm here with Rob Inman, Director of Product at FirmGuard, and today we're going to be talking about the need for security below the operating system. I'm going to be talking about how FirmGuard solve that problem for you, and how you can use FirmGuard and HaloPSA together to optimize your service desk and help remediate any potential alerts that might be triggered as a result of something happening below the OS. So yeah, Rob, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Morgan. Pleasure.
We'll start off by spending a little bit of time talking about Halo. So for those of you that aren't aware, perhaps one of the most shocking facts about Halo is that we've been around for quite a while. So the Halo platform, HaloPSA as you know it today, has been around for about 5 or 6 years, a little bit longer than I've been around at Halo. But our first employee was actually in 2007. And from that time until about 2019, we were running a Windows-based help desk application called Net Help Desk. And then it was about 5, 6 years ago that we threw that Windows app away and built Halo, the web application, from the ground up. So from a technology perspective, we don't have that technological debt. It is a completely fresh application. However, it's an application that has 25 years worth of industry knowledge, 25 years worth of doing things right, and 25 years worth of mistakes that we had an opportunity to build upon and to correct. And what that meant was when we launched with Halo, we really hit the ground running because we had an opportunity to redefine some of those processes that we had in the Windows application, and streamline some of the things that we were already doing effectively. Now, our founder, Paul Hamilton, who made that first hire in 2007, is still the active CEO of the company today. He is still in the office every day, sat next to anyone. He doesn't actually have an office, which I find quite interesting. He doesn't have a personal space that he sits in the office. He will sit in the support desk, and he will sit next to someone, whether they've been at Halo for 10 years or for 10 days. And it's quite important to know that Paul, our founder, is still very much an active CEO, because what you want as MSPs, I hope, is you want your relationships with your vendors to be considered as investments. You want a vendor that you can rely on, a vendor that you can trust, and a vendor that can give you a return on that investment. And Halo are in a unique position to truly offer ourselves as a vendor that can provide an ROI. And in a large part, that is because we are privately owned. We have been privately owned from day one, not even so much as an overdrawn bank account. And what that ultimately means for you guys is we can make long-term decisions, and the long-term decisions that we make are ultimately in your benefit. You are our stakeholders. You are the people that we answer to. So all of the decisions that we make here at Halo are made with you guys at the heart of those decisions, not any other type of stakeholder. And that philosophy has really allowed us to grow pretty aggressively. So we're on track for our 8th consecutive year of 100% growth. When I started, there were 3 offices. There's now 6. So we are a global company. As I mentioned at the start, I'm tuning in from Halo HQ in the southeast of England, but we have offices in east and west coast of the US, in Dubai, Australia, and India. And what we do here at Halo is we like to think quite simple. We develop, support, implement a single platform, the Halo platform. However, that platform is diverse enough to satisfy a variety of different audiences. And currently, we have 3 core offerings built upon the Halo platform. That's HaloPSA, which is tailored for MSPs. But we also have Halo ITSM, that is tailored for the enterprise market. And then more recently, as of last year, Halo CRM, that's targeted for service delivery teams. And under the hood, as I mentioned, it is the same application. And what that means is MSPs that use HaloPSA have an enterprise-ready solution at their fingertips. Now, in terms of what you can expect to get out of HaloPSA is a fully fledged PSA platform, including all of the core functions that you would expect to find from a PSA, everything from service, project management, sales, and e-signing of proposals, all the way through to automated billing, agreements, and that kind of stuff. And for that, you get the entire platform, everything that I mentioned and more, included in a single per seat license price that you would have to pay. Enabling or disabling a certain function or feature set within Halo is a simple case of enabling or disabling a module. You don't have to pay. There are no bolt-ons. There are no hidden fees. It's one plan, one product, and it's one price. That's a little bit about Halo. I want to pass it over to Rob now to spend a bit of time to talk about FirmGuard.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So FirmGuard is a product that comes from Phoenix Technologies as a company. And sometimes I speak to people and they aren't sure who we are as Phoenix. And then I do a little prodding, and sometimes we get that, oh, you're that Phoenix Technologies. We've been around for a while. We've been around over 40 years, 45 years as of now, actually, making BIOS firmware. If you built 386s and 486 computers, you might have seen our logo pop up. But currently, we're still doing firmware. We do firmware for all the Lenovo ThinkPads. We do firmwares for LG laptops, Vio laptops, and even other devices like Cisco devices, some electric car manufacturers. That's what we do. We know firmware. We have over 180 patents to our name. We are a co-founder of the UEFI Forum, along with other companies like Microsoft and Intel and AMD, and we're a chair of the UEFI Security Response Team. So this is something that we know very well, we care about. This is what we do. So from there, that's where the FirmGuard product was born. Now, what are we trying to do with FirmGuard? Well, it really has to do with the firmware, the challenge of managing firmware, right? So, for those of you that don't know, firmware lies below the operating system, right above the hardware. It's what kind of controls the hardware of a device. And the risk there is that if you have any malware that may infect at the firmware level, well, people are used to malware being at the OS level. And so, hey, let's just reformat, get a new OS on there, and everything's fine. And that's usually the first response. But if it's at the firmware level, as soon as you reboot the computer, it rereads that same malware information, and it's still present on the machine. So what else happens? Well, then you have to kind of track what's going on with the BIOS. How do I get up to the latest version? Because really being up to the latest version is the best way to avoid those type of issues, because the manufacturers themselves fix those holes that are in the BIOS. But how do you, as a user, figure out that you're at that latest version or not? And then, of course, what happens is when that new version gets released and you now have patch notes of where all those holes were, well, now everyone knows exactly what they're going to probe for the machines that haven't been updated to that latest version. So that leads, for attackers to using those vulnerabilities to basically get in at that firmware level. And this has become such a huge problem that even CISA is telling people, hey, you need to pay attention to this level, right? And if CISA is informing you that this is something that you need to pay attention to, well, what's coming up next is, well, you're going to have compliance that goes around a firmware to make sure that it's being protected, just like what we have today with the OS, which is pretty well protected in today's day and age. But what's interesting is when we install FirmGuard on devices, these are some of the statistics that we see right from the get-go. So for example, 25% of the endpoints, 1 in 4 machines, when we first install the software, they need a BIOS update. Like, we can see that. So those machines are vulnerable. They do not have the latest version. So that right off the bat, that's 1 in 4. 15% of the machines have legacy boot enabled. Now, legacy boot is really an insecure way of running your OS. So not something you want to see, and not something that you really have much visibility into seeing whether it's running legacy boot or not. And then finally, up to 20% of the machines that we see have secure boot disabled. Secure boot, for those that don't know, is a technology that Microsoft implemented to make sure that the OS is booting as expected. So none of the OS boot is being changed by some bad actors in order to, change. You kind of hide underneath the OS. So these are stats of what we're seeing right when FirmGuard first gets installed on the devices, within the endpoints that we're looking at. So we talked about FirmGuard. Well, what exactly is FirmGuard? The idea behind FirmGuard, and again, this comes from over 45 years of BIOS engineer work at Phoenix Technologies. The idea behind FirmGuard is to give you a product that makes it easy to remotely secure, configure, update, reimage the endpoints that you're managing in your stack. So why use FirmGuard, right? So some of the benefits right off the top. The security of the firmware. You want to make sure that you are updated to the latest version, things like that. Regulatory compliance. Whether it is making sure that you're up to the latest version, or even other tools like Secure Wipe, which I'll go into a little bit later, to be able to wipe drives in a way that keeps that compliance on those devices. And last but not least, technician efficiency, because all of these tools that we have are remote based. So historically, you would have, pardon me, you would need physical access to these devices in order to manage the BIOS, which was the Achilles heel, actually, because you would actually have to dispatch a technician on site in order to do any work on the BIOS. Our tools are all remote, so it really expands the ability of the technicians to go in and not only secure the BIOS, but also triage problems and things like that. But I said I was going to go a little bit into, we have our pricing. We have a tiered pricing model. So we start at 100 endpoints at $2 an endpoint. We go down to $1.50 at 5,000 endpoints. But I think the most important part is right there at the bottom, right? So everyone that's here at this webinar, we have this special offer that we're offering $1 per endpoint for anyone that signs up, through this webinar all the way out to June 10th. We also have a special link for you to basically sign up for a trial if you want to try this out for yourself. That's at firmguard.com/halo. So, as I'm going through the product, please feel free to go out there and schedule a demo for yourself, or, we can also have a trial set up for you so you can test it in your environment. But yeah, all of this is so you can get a taste of the tool, see what it can do for you, and see how it can really change the way how you're managing the security of your firmware with your clients. Morgan, do we want to go in and show the product?
100%. Yeah. It's a very compelling use case. So I think it would be good to take a look at FirmGuard in action. So I'll pass the screen over to you.
All right, let me get my share going. Okay. So let's go over some of the things that we were talking about when I was describing what FirmGuard does. So as I mentioned, great tool for managing your firmware, and it really contains 4 major features, right? So I'm going to go through them one by one. The first feature is all around BIOS updates, because like we said, that is, I think, the key to BIOS security, is making sure that you're updated to the latest version. But there are some, I don't want to call them issues, but there's some difficulties in making sure you're updated to the latest BIOS. Anyone who's worked on PCs knows that it's not the easiest process out there. So we try to make it easy for the technician, again, boost that technician efficiency. So let me walk you through that process. So the first step, if you take a look at our dashboard, is you see that we have right up the top here 5 machines that are out of date, meaning that they need a BIOS update. So we can click on this message, and now we get our list of those 5 machines that need an update. So as you can see here, I have an Acer, this one's a Lenovo, an Asus, a Dell, and an HP. So they're different manufacturers, but they all need BIOS updates. So we can pop into one of these right here, and you'll notice that I do have a little warning triangle in my secure update module. So when I click on it, I can get more information, such as this machine is on version 0.26, but there is a version 0.36 that's available. That's why we are behind. So in order to update this BIOS, I click the update button, and now I can click update, and that will update this machine. That's really all we need to do. Now, when it comes to a BIOS update, a reboot is required of the machine. We do need to reboot to update the BIOS. So we offer you the option to schedule out that reboot. So if you want to do it after hours, or if you have a scheduled maintenance window that you want to do it in, you can schedule out to a time that makes more sense. But everything else is taken care of by us behind the scenes. Now, what does that mean? Well, what we're doing here is, in this case, this is an Acer BIOS. So we are making sure that the correct Acer BIOS for this Acer machine gets pushed down to this device in order to update the BIOS. So that's step number one. The second thing that we're checking is BitLocker. And that's the one that tends to get them to shy away from updating BIOS, because sometimes you'll update a BIOS on a machine that has BitLocker enabled, and that's enough of a change for BitLocker to say, wait a minute, I need to lock this machine. Something changed. I'm not sure what it is, so I'm going to lock it. And then you need a BitLocker key in order to unlock it, and it's a hassle. Client doesn't like that to be locked out of their machine. So we check to see if BitLocker is enabled. If it is enabled, then what we'll do is before we reboot the machine, we'll pause BitLocker. So we'll reboot the machine, we'll install that update, and then when we reboot back in, we'll re-enable BitLocker. So you'll be able to be back in with BitLocker enabled as originally enabled, but you'll already have that BIOS update done. So we're taking care of that all behind the scenes. So as far as a technician is concerned, it's clicking a couple buttons and you get it done. Another thing that is also great for technician efficiency is being able to do this en masse. So you see here I have 5 different manufacturers. I can select all of these manufacturers and say that I want to run a secure update on all 5 machines at once, again, either immediately or scheduled out. And now, again, what we're doing is we're making sure that the correct BIOS is getting to that machine, whatever it's needed. So the Dell BIOS is going to the Dell, the HP BIOS is going to the HP. But as far as the technician is concerned, they can just do it from one screen and get it all done. And we take care of all the heavy lifting behind the scenes. So that is our first feature, which has been extremely well received. Customers love it, keeps them up to date. And of course, you can basically see if there are any machines that need an update right from our dashboard. So feature number 2 actually goes into the actual BIOS management. I'm going to use this second alert as an example. So here we see that we have secure boot disabled on a machine. And as I talked about during the slide, secure boot, you want to make sure it's enabled to make sure that the OS is booting as intended. So if it is disabled, you want to probably take a look at it and enable it. But again, historically, you would need physical access to the machine to get in there and enable secure boot. So when I click on the message, I get my list of 2 machines that have this disabled. I can click into one of them. Now I'm going to go into my secure config, which is my BIOS configuration utility. And here I have access to the BIOS of this machine remotely. So my secure boot happens to be right here in boot configuration. I know that. So there's my enable secure boot, which is unchecked. If I wanted to fix this issue, I could click it to turn it on, click save. I do need to reboot the machine because it needs to reread those BIOS settings. So I can do that immediately or schedule it out. Again, choose a time that makes more sense for the end user. But that is just one example, right? So we talked about secure boot, but like I said, I have access to the BIOS here. So for example, one thing that was always a pain for me when I saw a machine in the field that Wake on LAN was disabled, because I would have to dispatch a technician to turn that on if I wanted to get that working. Well, here I have access to my Wake on LAN setting. As you can see, it is disabled, but I have all the options necessary to come in here and choose the correct option to turn Wake on LAN on. So now I can use my tools to send a magic packet and get that machine on if I need to do some work on it. Another one that has been coming up a lot lately is the TPM chip. where we're seeing that the TPM 2.0 is actually coming unchecked from the factory. So that's, if you're installing BitLocker, that may cause an issue. If you're getting reports of like Windows 11 compatibility, you may get some false negatives because, it says that it can't upgrade to Windows 11 when all you need to do is check the TPM box. And that's exactly what you can do here. Just check it, save it, reboot it, and now you just enabled it. And I can go for hours on the different settings. There's a lot of settings in the BIOS. I'll just finish up with something simple like integrated devices. These are things like USB ports, microphones, webcams, things like that. We're working here at the firmware level, right? So for example, we have some financial customers that like to disable USB ports so that someone can't put in a thumb drive and copy data to it. Or other ones that like to disable USB boot support. So you can't, boot from like a Linux drive and bypass all the Windows security. So this basically moves the security from Windows, which I'm sure you have pretty well secured, down into the firmware level. And of course, when you are making changes here at the firmware level, as far as Windows is concerned, if you turn something off at the firmware, that hardware doesn't even exist on that machine. So it makes it that much more harder for someone to get around that. Whereas if you disable something in the device manager, if they know where to look, they can go in there and enable it again. But yeah, so that is remote BIOS management. Again, a huge tool for technicians to have for not just setting up the security of the device, but also troubleshooting. For example, real quickly, we had a customer that their webcam wasn't working. Turned out that from the BIOS settings, it had been turned off from the factory. It was a brand new laptop. Technician was able to come in here, check it back on, and reboot the machine and get the webcam working. My partner was telling me that without FirmGuard as a tool, they would have probably shipped the machine back because they would have thought the webcam was defective. So that client would have been without a laptop for more days while they got a new one coming back. So he was very happy to be able to have a tool that allowed him to expand his troubleshooting. All right, so that is the second feature. The third feature that I want to mention is secure wipe. I briefly mentioned this previously as well. So secure wipe is a way to wipe a drive on a machine in a way that it maintains certain compliance, whether that be HIPAA, CMMC, certain ISO compliances. So what this does, and actually, let me use an example. So without using this, normally what I see a lot of MSPs do is, let's say if they're working with a doctor's office, they will actually dispatch the technician to the office to pull the hard drives from the machine so they can bring them back into the office and destroy the hard drive. That way that doctor can make sure they maintain HIPAA compliance, all the patient data is destroyed, there's no personal information being leaked. And that's a great way of doing it, but it is very resource consuming. Here, what we can do is we can select a drive on the machine, click wipe drive. Now I have a couple different options here. You'll notice that this is an NVMe drive. And my first couple of options are NVMe related because we're actually reading from the firmware of that drive what wipes that drive supports. So that's where we're getting this information from. And here you want to choose the method that conforms to that customer's compliance they want to maintain. Now we have various ones like the US Department of Defense. We do have clients in that space and they need something at that level. We have British InfoSec Standard 5, again, for our international customers. We have Canadian, German versions. So the idea here is you choose the wipe that your client needs, click erase. Of course, you get the message that all the data is going to be gone, but that's the point. But at the end, what you'll have access to is a certificate of erasure. And this is what your client's going to want to see to make sure that the data is completely gone. So in the case of that doctor, we can run the secure wipe, and then we can call them up and tell them, hey, your machines are sanitized. They don't have any more personal information on them. I have the certificate of erasures for those drives. And you'll notice here that we have the drive information, the serial number, the computer information, date and time, and most importantly, the erase method that was used. So you have these certificate of erasure. So now that doctor, they can do whatever they want with the machines. They can donate them, give them to the kids, whatever the case is. But as a side, we've also not destroyed any hardware. So those machines still have the hard drives in them. It just has no data on it. So, they're still usable once you install another OS on it, but you didn't destroy any hardware. So no new hardware needs to be purchased to get those machines working again. So a lot of customers very excited about this feature, again, because of how it streamlines the way to be able to wipe a drive for a customer. So that is the third feature. And now the fourth feature I want to talk about is secure reimage. Now, what this is a reimaging product, but what we're adding to it is the remote functionality of it. So, I myself, I've been in this business for a couple decades. I used to use imaging tools back in the day, things like Norton Ghost. I'd create a golden image. Now, why would you even want to do that? Well, Windows has a reset function, but if you use that, you basically end up with a blank version of Windows. It has just Windows and that's all. But by creating a golden image, what you can do is you can include not just your preferred version of Windows, but you can also include all the other tools that you need. So whether that is your security stack, your RMM tools, even software like Office, QuickBooks, or CRM software that client may use, you could include that as part of the image. So the process would be you do create that Hyper-V in order to do that. And then you put it on the hard drive of the computer, and through our portal, you provision it. And when you provision it, what we do is that we encrypt that so that it can't be changed anymore, so that image can't be changed anymore, so that when you do a secure reimage, we have also created a hidden partition on the side. We'll reboot into that partition, which has a separate OS. We'll format that primary partition, and then we'll write that image back onto that primary partition. So when we do that final reboot, we end up with not only that fresh version of Windows, but your tools already installed on that machine. So very easy way to reimage a machine. And again, you can use it for things like a new employee starting and they're using someone else's old computer. So you want to refresh that so they can start new. Or I've even had some technicians say that they're trying to troubleshoot a problem and they see that it's going to take a lot longer than they expected. They don't see an end in sight. So sometimes with imaging project that takes maybe an hour, that may be a better solution to basically get them back up and running rather than waiting, various hours, possibly days before you can fix an issue. So just a couple of uses of what secure reimage can do for you. Now, we're very grateful for Halo partnering with us. We added some integrations with the Halo platform, and that is basically two different types of integrations. We are group-based, right? So we call them groups. You can call them tenants, clients, sites. But the idea is that you probably have a lot of those already created within Halo. So with our integration, what you can do is you can import those automatically now right into the FirmGuard platform. So that way you don't have to be recreating them once you start using FirmGuard. So that's actually out now. We released that. The other one that is going to be released very soon has to do with alerting. So, we talked about the dashboard and the type of alerts that you see here. Well, we're going to be able to push those alerts over to Halo so we can create tickets. That way, your technicians will be alerted, fairly instantaneously when they have a ticket waiting for them. And that ticket contains that firmware level information that you want to take care of at your customer level. So that's kind of an overview of what the product does. Again, if you go to firmguard.com/Halo, you can schedule a one-on-one demo if you'd like, if you have specific questions you'd like to ask, or we can start a trial for you so you can test it out in your environment and see how it works.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know about the secure wipe feature. That's very neat. I like that it provides a certificate at the end, some kind of, eligible documentation that you can share with your customers as the MSP saying, here you go. Yeah, all wiped. You're good to go. I haven't been around in the industry that long, but I hear lots of horror stories about, just everything being on site and shipping out technicians, to the end of the earth to perform what was ultimately a relatively simple task. And that's a pretty strong use case. Yeah, it's cool. Nice. So as Rob mentioned there, FirmGuard have built an integration with Halo. One of the soon upcoming features is around alert management and pushing those non-compliance alerts, those security alerts into Halo. I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about what you can do in Halo once those alerts land in the platform. So if I share my screen. Cool. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah. So what we're looking at here is the Halo home screen. First and foremost, you'll see, quite a few stats here. So the information that's presented on an individual's home screen when they log into Halo can be configured on an agent by agent basis, where an agent is one of your technicians. It is a member of the MSP. It's someone logging into Halo on a daily basis, solving tickets, sending quotes, raising invoices, that kind of stuff. And the information that we have here is fully configurable, and is derived from a series of reports that we have in the system. And when I talk about reports, it's worth keeping in the back of your mind that we have an online repository of around about 1,000 pre-built reports as of today. And we can get to those by going to the reporting module and then to our online repository, where the current tally is at 991. So there's an incredibly rich data set or a rich set of reports to pull exactly what data you want to pull out of the system. You can collate that together and put that on the homepage for the technician that it is relevant for. So, your SDMs might want a support overview or a service desk overview. Your level 1 technicians might want to simply see statistics that are relevant to them as an agent. Your, financial team, your FCO might want to see the invoicing and the profitability stats and all of that good stuff. And of course, first and foremost, we see these modules here. We see these buttons. These are the modules that I was referring to earlier. These are the things that you can simply enable or disable at your own leisure. One of them, of course, being Service Desk. So if we click in here, really what we're looking at here is can be broken down into two main sections. So in the main bulk of the screen, we have a list of our tickets. Now, the tickets that we're viewing here in our list is based on the option that we select on the left-hand side, and that would be our viewing pane. So currently, we've organized our service desk into the respective teams, first, second, and third line support. But what we can do is we can actually be far more specific in terms of what criteria would we like to define in order for a ticket to appear in this list. And it might be that we want to show a list of alerts, for example. Now, if I wanted to create a list of alerts, all I have to do is click on my tickets by team, change my view to lists, where we see a full set of all of the available lists in the service desk area, and create a new list down here. Now, when I'm doing this, the important component is behind this filters tab. So the filters that we can apply in order to create a list are incredibly diverse. We can see dozens, if not hundreds of fields at your disposal here, and pretty much every single data point that is tracked against a ticket, including its type, which in this case, we would want to define as being alert. Save that. And what we'll find now is we have our alerts list, and we have one example alert in there because we have one ticket that satisfies our criteria. Couple of quick wins when it comes to managing tickets from the service desk, and something that is often overlooked, but it's quite a nice feature, however small that feature may be. And that is, when I'm coming into the service desk and looking at my unassigned tickets, I might want to quickly just grab this one. I know what it's about, so I'm going to pop it into my queue. I don't have to go into the ticket and reassign it manually. I can, if I want, simply drag and drop over my name, and that is going to reassign that ticket directly to me. It's quite a nice little feature. Similarly, you can link tickets to one another or even merge them into one another by dragging and dropping over each other. At which point we have the option to define what we're doing here, if we're merging the two together, or if we're simply linking the two together, keeping them unique, but establishing a relationship between the two. Now, we can create our own bespoke lists that define the list of tickets that appear based on our option on the left-hand side. And then when we're showing our list, what we're looking at here are a series of columns. Those in Halo are also configurable. And I can edit those just by clicking the three dots up top and then clicking Edit Columns, where I'll see all of the columns that I have available to me, all of the columns that are currently presented, with the option down here to add new columns in should I wish. And again, we see that same list of all of the data points against our tickets that we could possibly want to leverage. The columns are presented as they are shown in the list. And if I wanted to move the placement of a column, that is a simple drag and drop exercise. And that's going to move my agent column all the way over to the left-hand side here. So again, there is an incredible level of flexibility when it comes to specifying how you organize your service desk. What lists do you want to create on the left-hand side here that present the most important tickets that your team have to work on, open problems, P1 incidents, that kind of stuff. And then once you're presenting a list of tickets, what is the key information that you want to be available at a glance when viewing the list? Those would be defined from your column profile. Now, clicking into a ticket, I just want to highlight a couple of key points in here. Really, what we can break this screen down into sort of four main sections, I suppose. First and foremost, we have our progress feed. This is where all of our internal and external correspondence will be added to the ticket, any incoming or outgoing emails, anything like that. This it also presents to us our SLA information. We can see in this case, we are somewhat breaching our SLA. Hopefully yours don't look so red, but again, you'll be able to see the SLA and the priority. And as a combination of the two, your expected response and resolution target times and whether you have met them or not. And to the right-hand side of that, you have just some more miscellaneous ticket information. Who is the ticket currently assigned to? What type of ticket are we looking at here? What's its current status, etc. To the right-hand side of that, we have up top here our timer. So time is constantly being tracked in Halo. And this timer can be automatically ticking up from the moment that you open a ticket, from the moment that you perform an action, which is one of these buttons up top, or you can leave it disabled and manually enter your time. But the premise here, the idea in a perfect world is your technician's entire day is tracked through Halo, and every minute of their day is allocated to a particular action. And we can see at the minute, I've aggregated about 6 minutes looking at this ticket a couple of times over the last 15 minutes. Now, below that, we have our end user information, including a link to our client record. So this is where our groups from FirmGuard will land, this is where our groups in FirmGuard are being pulled from the client records in Halo. And we can get to those again from the left-hand side, just below our ticket areas, just below our sales area against our customers. The structure of customers in Halo is sort of 3 core levels with a potential 4th level. Generally, we have clients, sites, and users. So a client record is an account, it is a tenant, generally speaking. Within a client record, we have multiple sites. A site would represent a physical location. And within a given site, we might have multiple end users, contacts, the people logging tickets. Clicking into one of these records, what we're looking at here is a full overview of this customer. So you can see all of the updates, all of the correspondence, open tickets that they have, all of that stuff. And far more information than just that on this tab, but we have a number of different tabs capturing the relevant pieces of information to this customer in question. Things like CRM notes. So if you have a check-in as an account manager, you would add your CRM note in there. Things like billing configuration. What do our billing rules look like? What type of work is covered by an agreement for this customer versus what type of work is excluded? Of course, tickets, whether they're open tickets, closed tickets, or a master list of everything. And also assets/devices. So this list can be populated from a variety of integrations. All of the popular RMM integrations and more will populate your CMDB, your asset repository inside of Halo. Now, what's quite neat about that is Halo has the option to establish relationships between an asset and a ticket, but also a relationship between assets in Halo. So touching on that first point, of course, some of the tickets that land into your service desk will be relevant to a particular device, whether that is in this case Terence's laptop not being able to boot. We might want to find Terence's laptop in the system and relate that to this ticket. That's quite handy to know, because moving forward, you might want to have a look at all of the tickets that have been logged against this particular device. This is going to help you with understanding the volumes, how problematic a particular asset is in the system. Do you just want to cut your losses and replace it, or do you want to keep attempting to fix the printer? It will be fixed one day, I promise. But also, I mentioned that the assets can be related to one another, and they can be done so via the relationships tab in Halo. So we have upstream and downstream relationships where, upstream parent asset, downstream is a child asset. But probably the most powerful benefit of establishing these relationships between our devices is that Halo will automatically build out a dependency diagram for you, showing you where this asset is in the dependency tree. So in this case, we have a couple of laptops, with 2 laptops and a workstation that are all related to an AD server, which is also linked to a domain controller via a rack. So we can map our full network topology out directly in Halo via the relationships that we have between assets. And of course, the relationships that we have are upstream, downstream. But furthermore, you can establish a particular type of relationship connected to, installed on, member of, that kind of stuff. And then finally, that dependency diagram that I just showed you on the asset is actually something that can be displayed directly on the ticket. So the idea being, alert is raised, a ticket comes into Halo. It's going to have an asset linked to it automatically, or perhaps you might want to manually establish that link on the right-hand side. And then given that you've mapped your network topology out in Halo and you've got your relationships between your devices all configured correctly, directly from that ticket, you'll be able to see where the problem might be residing. So if someone's saying that they can't log into their machine, and you know that this laptop is connected to this AD server, you might want to hop over to that server, check for any existing tickets against it, and of course, perform the relevant remediation. But yeah, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to leave it there. I could talk about Halo for hours, as I always say, but that's just a small snippet into the power of HaloPSA. Cool. So we've got a little bit of time left, specifically for a Q&A section. So Rob, I haven't seen if anyone has been asking questions. I can see something in the chat, but yeah, no questions at the minute. But please, guys, if you do have any questions for me or for Rob, then now is the time. So yeah, please. Don't be shy, guys. So data log technologies. The network diagram that I just showed you from within Halo is something that is built up and established when relating assets to one another. I don't believe that is part of the initial integration with FirmGuard, but I think that would be a very powerful addition if that is information that is available on the FirmGuard side. Because as we saw there, simply establishing a relationship between the two is how we're going to be building that diagram out. So, Rob, does FirmGuard capture information about network mappings and how a device is related to potentially another device?
Yeah, so currently we are agent based, right? So you install our agent on the device, and that's how we gather the information of what that device is, so on and so forth. We do have actually features that are coming up in our roadmap in the future where we'll be handling, pardon me, where we'll be handling not just computer BIOSes, but also firmwares related to things that are on the network, such as printers, switches, firewalls, things like that. And in that case, yes, you will start seeing devices and how they relate to each other within the network.
Perfect. Nice. Yeah, so keep that in the back of your mind. When you have that, it won't be shortly after people will be asking for that to automatically update in Halo. So, cool. I've got a question for you, Rob.
Sure.
I appreciate the benefit of modifying the BIOS in the context of how you were describing it, but what sort of scenarios would require one to remotely update the BIOS?
Well, remotely update the BIOS. That's pretty much anytime an update comes out, right? So,
sorry, I meant modify. Sorry,
oh,
that was my
got it.
poor
Not a
language
problem.
there.
But yeah, so I've been in this space for, like I mentioned, many decades, and BIOS for me, when I was managing PCs, BIOS for me was kind of like something that was lived out there. Because again, I needed to have physical access to the machine. So it was something that I never really thought about because it was like, I'm never going to actually get in front of the machine and change things. So why even bother thinking about it? It was much better for me to concentrate on things like, a remote management tool. Where I could remote into a device and make changes or send information remotely. It made me more efficient, made my company more efficient. But again, the BIOS was that area that always had to have hands-on access to the machine. So it's not something that people would think about, but like I mentioned, from our dashboard, if you see something like secure boot being disabled, I haven't seen many applications that actually tell you that. And I believe that the main reason for that is that there's no easy way to fix that. So it's kind of like they're telling you about a problem that they don't offer a solution for. So that's one example of something that you can go into the BIOS and fix that issue on that device. But again, when I'm usually talking to people and showing them the product, I tend to give them examples of things that they can do because it's something that a lot of people haven't spent the time thinking about, like, what could I do in the BIOS? So, one example, again, I would hate to see in my RMM a device that had wake on LAN turned off, because then again, if I needed to wake the device or use that device to wake another device, it wasn't available. And in order to change that setting, required physical access to the machine. So wake on LAN is one of those settings, TPM. And again, moving down into the security aspect of it, now you can change security settings on the device at the firmware level that you did not have access to before. A lot of our partners are using this also as a differentiator because now they're telling their customers, hey, I've been, basically your Windows is protected. I've been protecting that for you. So when you log onto Windows, you have the best protection. But, some other companies, that's where they stop. Whereas I actually start my protection of your machine the second that power button gets pressed, not when you log into Windows. So expanding that security out into the firmware space, differentiates them from other MSPs in the marketplace, but also gives them access to settings that they would normally need to either ignore or have a technician go on site to change those settings.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's one of those points that when we first engaged and we were first explaining to me about FirmGuard, it was like, oh, this is obvious. Like this is clearly an attack vector. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, who's solving this problem? There aren't there aren't many people other than yourselves that are. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, most of the
Um,
solutions up to now have used on motherboard chips to be able to communicate, which obviously ours doesn't require. We just need that agent installed.
nice.
But yeah.
Cool, Rob. I think you got
I
another
do see a
question in there.
Yeah, I see a question came up. Since the BIOS only changes once in 5 years, how to position to the customer for 5 and 15 person customer? Well, I think that nowadays you're seeing more BIOS updates appear more often. Also, you may have, let's say, a Dell update comes out. Okay, so now that Dell update may be good for another period of time. But then if you have an HP, that HP update obviously is not going to come out at the same time as the Dell update. So you have to be aware of whenever that HP update comes out. But I think the way that you have to think about it is that the reason why that BIOS update gets released is because there is an issue that's being resolved. So the question that you need to ask your customers: are you okay with that issue being out there on your systems for any given period of time? Because, like I said, once that gets released into the wild or it gets publicly released, usually patch notes come along with that, or people, basically tear down the new BIOS and look at the differences, and now they can see where those holes used to be in the BIOS, and then they start targeting machines that haven't been updated. Again, banking on the idea that the BIOS is hard to update, and therefore people are going to wait a while before they update it. They're going to look for those opportunities to use those openings to get in. So it's really about, it just takes once for something to go wrong, right? So, uh, I don't know if I like using this example, but you have insurance hoping that nothing happens. But when you need it and you have it, it's great because it takes care of everything. In the same vein, even though you are getting more updates now than once every 5 years, when an update does come out, you want to make sure that you're informed to make sure that machine gets secured and gets updated as soon as possible to keep your clients out of that danger zone. Plus, on the other side, and kind of going away from the security aspect of it, again, it gives your team extra tools to be able to remotely manage issues, triage problems, and added services. Like we have one of our partners who I spoke to very proudly proclaimed how Secure Wipe has become a great profit center for him because it's very easy to do, but it's a service that's needed, and his customers are very happy with it. So it gives you extra avenues to add services to your customers.
For sure, for sure. With the last couple of minutes left, I'm going to open up the slides again. Hopefully you can see that. And Rob, you mentioned that there was a landing page and a promotional offer for everyone that has tuned in today. That is via the QR code that you can see on the screen now.
Yeah. And it'll take you to that URL. So whatever you prefer, either
Nice.
pull your phones out and go to the page, or just firmguard.com/halo. Should be easy to remember.
Nice. And Rob, any other final call to actions from FirmGuard?
No, just, like I said, reach out to us, let us know. We'd be happy to dive deeper with you guys, answer some more questions, or again, if you want to trial it, we'll help you get set up and you can, take it out for a test drive and see how it works for you.
Nice. The same thing with Halo. There's a big start trial button in the top right hand side of the website, or even easier, there's a big QR code on the screen here. I always say, don't take my word for it. Get a trial, check it out, and see what Halo is all about. My contact is, I'll pop that in the chat for you. But if you're interested in learning more about HaloPSA, please do feel free to reach out to sales@halopsa.com. And then my email is coming into the chat for everyone. So if you wanted to have a conversation with me about any of the bits that I spoke about specifically, feel free to drop me an email there. That's in the chat for you. Yeah, Rob, thanks again. A really powerful session and a great value prop that the FirmGuard have. So thanks for joining today. Thanks to the FirmGuard team for working on the integration, and yeah, looking forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thanks for having us, Morgan.
Thank you, everyone.